Practice Test 1. What is the purpose of an isolated grounding system in a hospital? Patient protection is the purpose of isolated grounding systems in hospitals. For circuits with supply lighting units, warehouse, with ballasts, transformers or auto transformers, the computed load must be based on a total ampere rating. What you use to compute load for supply lighting with ballasts and transformers. The tool room has highly flammable liquids. What type of raceway would you be required to use? RMC rigid metal conduit such as EMT for areas storing flammable liquids. What type of raceway would you be required to use to make for an underground 25-foot run to a lamppost? Either RNC, rigid non-metallic conduit such as PVC, or RMC, rigid metallic conduit such as EMT for underground raceways. Electric discharge luminaries, lighting fixtures, having a flanged surface inlet can be supplied by cord pendants equipped with cord connectors. Inlets and connectors can be lower ampere rating than the branch circuit but not less than 125% of the luminaire load current. Electric discharge luminaries provided with mogul-based screw shell lamp holders can be connected to branch circuits of 50 amperes or less with cords that comply with electrical code. The ampacity of arc welder conductors supplying a ground of welders shall be based on individual currents, the sum of 100% of the two largest welders, plus 85% of the third largest welder, plus 70% of the fourth largest, plus 60% of any other welder. Conductors supplying one or more arc welders must have an overcurrent protective device rated or set not more than 200% of the conductor ampacity. Using the drawing, how high are the two outdoor floodlights on the side of the building? 14 feet. Use the following paragraph for the next 5 questions. This applies to each continuous duty motor rated for more than 1 horsepower that is protected against overcurrent, overload, by a separate overcurrent device which is responsive to motor current. This device shall be rated or selected to trip no more than the following % of the motor full load current rating. Motors with a marked service factor not less than 1.15, 125%. Motors marked with a temperature rise not over 40 degrees Celsius, 125%. Sealed, hermetic type, motor compressors for overload relays, 140%. Sealed, hermetic type, motor compressors for other devices, 125%. All other motors, 115%. Repeat. This applies to each continuous duty motor rated for more than 1 horsepower that is protected against overcurrent, overload, by a separate overcurrent device which is responsive to motor current. This device shall be rated or selected to trip no more than the following % of the motor full load current rating. Motors with a marked service factor not less than 1.15, 125%. Motors marked with a temperature rise not over 40 degrees Celsius, 125%. Sealed, hermetic type, motor compressors for overload relays, 140%. Sealed, hermetic type, motor compressors for other devices, 125%. All other motors, 115%. In a patient's room at a healthcare facility, you are required 4 hospital-grade receptacles for equipment, life safety branch and critical branch area. The maximum operating temperature allowed for number 12 THW conductor is 75 degrees Celsius, or 167 Fahrenheit is the maximum operating temp allowed for number 12 THW. True or false? If a metal box, metal cabinet, or non-current carrying metal box are connected to a grounded raceway metallically, then these are all considered to be grounded. True. If a metal box, metal cabinet, or non-current carrying metal box are connected to a grounded raceway metallically, then these are all considered to be grounded. True. The minimum size for grounding electrode conductor for the service entrance is, number 8, is the minimum size grounding electrode for a service entrance. In a 3-phase, 4-wire, 230-volt system connected to a 115 VAC, 8 kW system, and appliance, with number 14 cord, the cord has 3 conductors. What is the maximum number 10 THW conductors allowed in a 1-inch conduit? 18 number 10 THW max in a 1-inch conduit. The project specifications on a lamp indicated is 40W, T20, RSCW, which is fluorescent lamp, 40 watt, bi-pin, rapid start, cool white. 40 watt, T20 bi-pin, RS rapid start, CW cool white. Electrical code requires that the distance between supports for knob and tube installations shall not exceed 4.5 feet, is the max distance between supports for knob and tube installations. The total rating of fixed appliances on a 20 amp branch circuit shall not exceed 20 amps. Fixed appliance rated for the amperage of the circuit, hardwired. The rating of one portable appliance used on a 30 amp branch circuit shall not exceed 24 amps. Correction factor for portable appliances. Number 12 wire conductor using 120-240 volts is rated at 20 amps. What would it be rated if you used 480 volts? 20 amps can be rated the same amperage with difference in voltage. True or false? It is permissible to place fluorescent lighting on a 30 amp branch circuit. False. True or false? It is permissible to place fluorescent lighting on a 30 amp branch circuit. False. What is the minimum size AWG service that can enter a house? 8 AWG is the minimum size service that can enter a home. A fixed load on a number 12 wire will carry 20 amps. Fixed load on number 12 wire will carry 20 amps. The largest standard cartridge fuse is rated at 6000 amps is the largest standard cartridge fuse. In the electrical code, the maximum number of number 14 rubber wires permitted in a 4-inch by 1.5-inch octagonal outlet box is 7 wires of number 14 rubber wire in a 4 by 1.5 octagonal box. Max permitted. If you have a fixture stud and a cable clamp in a 4-inch by 1.5-inch octagonal outlet box, you may have only 5 wires in a 4 by 1.5-inch octagonal box with fixture stud and cable clamp. Plug-type fuses are never permitted in circuits which exceed 150 volts to the ground. Plug-type fuses are never permitted with more than 150 volts to ground. True or false? The amperage of a circuit is in direct proportion to the resistance as long as all of the conductors remain the same. False. The amperage of a circuit is in direct proportion to the resistance as long as all of the conductors remain the same. False. True or false? If you doubled the circular mills on a wire resistor, it would decrease the resistance and increase the current. True. More flow like bigger pipe. If you doubled the circular mills on a wire resistor, it would decrease the resistance and increase the current. True. More flow like bigger pipe. If the power in a circuit remains constant and the voltage in a circuit doubles, the current is reduced. How many conductors can be put into conduit using 3 or more conductors? 40% of the cross-section of the conduit for 3 or more conductors. When using 2 lock nuts on a SIP panel installation, what is required by code for the ground? Bonding lock nuts are required for the ground on a SIP panel install. If you had marked out on a set of plans the following: locate 4 4-foot-long 6-inch wide fluorescent light fixtures symmetrically laid out, parallel to the major axis of a 16-foot by 20-foot room. The closest fixture would be 5 feet from 20-foot wall, and 4 feet from the 16-foot wall. See diagram. What size rigid metal conduit is required for 3 number 3-aught conductors at 200 amps? 2-inch rigid metal conduit is required for 3 number 3-aught conductors at 200 amps. For a small appliance load in a dwelling residence, the code requires 2 20-amp circuits to provide for this small appliance load. The feeder amount is to be 3000 watts for 2 20-amp small appliance circuits. The rating of a portable appliance that is used on a 20-amp branch circuit shall not exceed 16 amps. Correction factor for portable appliance. The minimum size conductor that is required for an 8 3/4 kW range is number 8, is the minimum size conductor for an 8 3/4 kW range. True or false? EMT conduit stands for electrical metallic tubing and is a rigid tubing. True. The service entrance rating of a single-family dwelling with an additional load of 10 kW, using a 3-wire service shall not be less than 100 amps. SFD with additional 10 kW using 3 wire shall not be less than 100 amps. The minimum size copper service entrance conductor to be used on a residential dwelling shall be, number 8. Copper service entrance min size on residential dwelling is number 8. An Erickson coupling, used in the electrical field is, a coupling used to join two lengths of rigid conduit. Erickson coupling joins two lengths of rigid conduit. 1 kilowatt equals 1000 watts. 1 kilowatt equals 1000 watts. True or false? 1 watt is 1/746th of 1 horsepower. True. True or false? 1 watt is 1/746th of 1 horsepower. True. How many 90-degree bends are allowed in one run, using EMT or rigid metallic conduit? 4 bends of 90 degrees max. Then add junction or pull box. A room that is 20 feet wide has 4 rows of lights evenly spaced on center. How far from the wall is the center of the first row of light? 2.5 feet. A room that is 20 feet wide has 4 rows of lights evenly spaced on center. How far from the wall is the center of the first row of light? 2.5 feet. What is the maximum recommended temperature in which to use plastic, non-metallic, PVC, electric wire conduit? 90 degrees Celsius, 194 degrees Fahrenheit. Max temp for plastic non-metallic PVC electric conduit is 90 degrees Celsius, 194 degrees Fahrenheit. Using a number 8 feeder conductor supplying air conditioning equipment, the circuit shall be loaded to a max of 32 amps. Number 8 feeder for air conditioning circuit loaded at 32 amps max. The demand for a 16 kW electric range should be assessed at 9600 watts. 16 kW electric range has a demand of 9600 watts. What are the minimum size electric wires used in house wiring? Number 14. Min size wires used in house are number 14. All electrical switch which turns on several rows of fluorescent lights must be rated so that the load does not exceed the ampere rating of the switch. A switch which controls rows of fluorescent lights must not exceed the ampere rating of the switch. The main electrical service which on a building should be rated for not less than the total load to be carried. Main service must be rated for the total load carried by the building. How many wires are needed for the operation of 2 motor control stop-start stations? 3 wires on each circuit. 2 motor control stop-start stations require 3 wires on each circuit. A single-phase motor draws 32 amperes under full load condition. How large must the fuse be rated? 300% of the full load current. Single-phase motor draws 32 amps at full load. Fuse must be 300% of full load current. True or false? To change the speed of a synchronous motor it would need to be necessary to vary the field voltage. False. True or false? To change the speed of a synchronous motor it would need to be necessary to vary the field voltage. False. The spacing between heating cables embedded in plaster ceilings, not exceeding 2 3/4 per foot of cable, shall not be less than 1.5 inch. Wiring located above heated ceiling shall be spaced not less than 2 inches. Wiring located above heated ceiling shall be spaced not less than 2 inches. According to the electrical code, heating cables should be separated from lighting fixtures and their trim at least 2 inches. Heat cables should be 2 inches from light fixtures. A recessed lighting fixture in a ceiling near a ceiling heating unit should be not recessed at all. No recessed lighting fixture in a ceiling near a heating unit. A portable electric appliance would be best grounded by a green wire in the cable or cord. Portable electric appliance best grounded by green wire in cable or cord. In lighting, how many watts per square foot of area is recommended for a dwelling? 3 watts per square foot. Lighting recommended is 3 watts per square foot in a dwelling. What are the minimum small appliance circuit receptacle requirements in dwelling occupancies for kitchen, family room, laundry, pantry, dining room and breakfast room? 2. 20 amp circuits. Min small appliance requirements are 2 20 amp circuits. What is the best way to ground an electrical system? Underground water pipe system. Best way to ground an electrical system is the underground water pipe system. What is the best way to join a home electrical system to the ground? Copper wire. Best way to join a home electrical system to ground is using copper wire. What is the largest size wire you may place in a 3/8-inch flexible steel conduit? Number 10. Largest wire in a 3/8-inch flex steel conduit is number 10. Where underground service conductors are carried up a pole, the mechanical protection shall be installed to a point at least 8 feet above ground. Underground service conductors carried up a pole for mechanical protection installed at least 8 feet above the ground. True or false? Voltage to ground is in grounded circuits, the voltage between the given conductor and that point or conductor of the circuit which is grounded. In underground circuits, the greatest voltage between the given conductor and any other conductor of the circuit. True. When lights go dim and turn on and off, what is the problem? Loose wire. Lights go dim and turn off and on, the problem would be a loose wire connection. What is the minimum height of service drop wires over residential driveways? 12 feet. Min height service drop wires over residential driveways is 12 feet. What is the minimum height of service drop wires over driveways, other than residential, such as streets, alleys and public roads? 18 feet. Min height service drop wires over non-residential driveways is 18 feet. A circuit in a home is usually run for which of the following outlets? 2 or more. Circuit in a home is usually run for 2 or more outlets. What is the largest resistance of an electric heating unit that is allowed in a home? 1 million ohms. Largest resistance of electric heating in a home is 1 million ohms. What is the largest size a panel box may be before it has to be fastened securely other than by the pipe attached to it? 100, 150 and 200 cubic inches. According to the electrical code, which of the following can be done with a loose wire? You cannot have loose wires, it must be removed. Cannot have loose wires, never acceptable by electric code. True or false? A motor controller is any switch or device normally used to start and stop the motor. True. True or false? A motor controller is any switch or device normally used to start and stop the motor. True. To identify certain wire or wires on a 3-phase motor that has been disconnected, you would tag the wires. Tag the wires on a 3-phase motor before disconnecting to identify wire positions. What is the maximum amount of number 10 TW conductors you can put in a 1-inch conduit according to electrical code? 15. Max number of 10 TW conductors in 1-inch conduit is 15. What conduit size would be required for 5 number 10 conductors? Half-inch. With 5 number 10 conductors, use half-inch conduit. The thermal overload protection shall be rated at what % of the motor full load current rating on motors marked to have a temperature rise of not more than 40 degrees Fahrenheit? Not more than 125% of the full load current. Thermal overload protection 125% to not exceed 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Heating cables should not be separated from the edges of outlet boxes and junction boxes that are to be used for mounting surface lighting fixtures at least 8 inches. In the electrical code, what is the largest size wire you can draw, though conduit up to 1 1/4 inch in size? Number 0 wire. Largest wire in a 1 1/4 conduit is number 0 wire. What is the largest resistance ground on a grounding rod allowed? 25 ohms. Largest resistance to ground on a grounding rod is 25 ohms. What is the minimum height of service drip wires over sidewalks? 10 feet. Min height service drop wires over sidewalk is 10 feet. If a manufactured wiring system using type MC cables runs through a suspended ceiling used as the lower side of a return air cavity, it can go into a wall to a switch. If a manufactured wiring system using type MC cables runs through a suspended ceiling used as the lower side of a return air cavity, it can go into a wall to a switch. True or false? Wired office partitions aren't supposed to substitute for structural wiring in a building, and for that reason the electrical code usually won't allow them to extend all the way from the floor to structural framing member within a ceiling. True. Which of the following freestanding installation of freestanding wired partitions would be permitted to be connected to the building wiring system with a single flexible cord and plug? Electrical Code 605.4. Answer: 4 by 8 feet interconnected partitions with a cord no longer than 2 feet. Could the manual override switch in a time clock controller be the disconnecting means for electric signs? No. Which of the following GFCI protective arrangements would be acceptable for an outdoor portable sign? Factory supplied GFCI and the cord for outdoor portable signs. Which of the following wiring methods could supply a permanent outdoor sign fed from and 5 feet away from a building? Type UF cable for permanent outdoor signs. Which of the following wiring methods could be used to enclose 10 kV conductors on the secondary side of a neon transformer? The sign in question is a skeleton-type sign used indoors. Both metallic and non-metallic electrical tubing for enclosed 10 kV conductors on secondary side of neon transformer. Neon sign transformers that are installed independently of the sign must be readily accessible. Neon sign transformers that are installed independently of the sign must be readily accessible. In a concrete encased grounding electrode, what size does it have to be? 1/2 inch for grounding electrode that is encased in concrete. In a concrete encased grounding electrode 20 feet long, how much concrete has to be around it between the concrete and the earth? 2 inches between the concrete and earth for 20-foot grounding electrode. How much space is required over a vault in a basement situation? 6 feet. How much space is required over a vault in a basement situation? 6 feet. In a concrete encased grounding electrode 20 feet long, what size does the wire have to be? 4 AWG bare copper for 20-foot grounding electrode encased in concrete. If you are frequently using a hazardous cleaning liquid in a garage, what kind of conduit do you use to hook up the receptacle? Rigid conduit for a receptacle near hazardous cleaning liquids. What determines where you place a subpanel? Distance from equipment determines where you place a subpanel. If you have to put a ground rod into rocky soil, how would you do it? Install a 1-foot plate electrode 30 inches in the ground for rocky soil. Installing a ground rod. If working on 12,000 volts underground service, who has jurisdiction of work? Electrical code. If working on 12,000 volts underground service, who has jurisdiction of work? Electrical code. What is the minimum size of LFMC liquid flex? 3/8 inch max size for liquid flex. How do you seal conduit in toxic environment? Duct seal for sealing conduit in toxic areas. The service outlet outside the boathouse, shore power for the boat shall be a minimum of 30 amperes, locking and grounding type receptacle. The service outlet outside the boathouse, shore power for the boat shall be a minimum of 30 amperes, locking and grounding type receptacle. When using electric hand tools for repair work from the boathouse outlet, the outlet shall be 30 amp minimum and 50 amp maximum, locking and grounding device. When using electric hand tools for repair work from the boathouse outlet, the outlet shall be 30 amp minimum and 50 amp maximum, locking and grounding device. A motor rated for 600 volts, nominal or less, must have a disconnecting means with a rating of at least 115% of the motor's full load current rating. Motors rated at 600 volts or less need a quick disconnect means rated at 115% of full load current. What is the maximum size of liquid type flex? 4 inches max size for liquid type flex. When installing an electrical panel in a kitchen, the primary factor for location is a wet location. When installing an electrical panel in a kitchen, the primary factor for location is a wet location. A switch or electrical receptacle shall be no higher than 48 inches, and shall be no lower than 15 inches for ADA requirements. A switch or electrical receptacle shall be no higher than 48 inches, and shall be no lower than 15 inches for ADA requirements. On front-loading laundry, the minimum height from the floor to the bottom of the door is 15 inches from floor to bottom of the door for front-loading laundry. Which of the 4 figures below is symbolic of a volume-controlled telephone? The phone with noise lines. The size of control buttons on an elevator shall be no smaller than 3/4 inch min size for control buttons on elevators. The maximum height of the elevator controls shall be 48 inches. The maximum height of the elevator controls shall be 48 inches. The derating factor of running 4/6 conductors in a raceway is 80%. The derating factor of running 4/6 conductors in a raceway is 80%. The derating factor of running 7/9 conductors in a raceway is 70%. The derating factor of running 7/9 conductors in a raceway is 70%.